information and to talk to you tonight. I'm not talking about the leak that's up high, but there's a leak on our street apparently on Beaufait Avenue. And my question is about, there's an empty lot between Kirkholm and I think it's Edelston, and there's, folks, can you help me out? Anybody who's on the street, it's an empty lot that looks out on Aliso Canyon. And over the past week, there's been a big truck there, it looks like a big water truck of some kind, and a payloader. And I didn't know what this was related to. Now, we're all kind of on edge here in the community when we smell something or we see something a little strange. It seems to be with gas. So I'm sorry if this is off topic, but I'd like to know who owns that property, what's going on there. If there is a leak, the neighbor who lives across the street said he smelled gas. I live just up the street. I'd like to know what's going on because I never knew when I bought into this neighborhood over 20 years ago how many gas pipes and gas lines are underneath the streets and right near our houses. So this concern in our neighborhood is not just about the air being a mile away. All the things that come from your facility go right through our neighborhood, whether it's in the air or under the ground. And we're very concerned about safety now. So can you help me with the answer?
Yes, so first of all, I would appreciate if after the meeting, you and I can just chat a little bit about the specific location.
Sure.
I want to make sure if there's any concerns about leaks in any pipe that we address immediately. As you know, there are distribution pipes throughout the entire city that serve homes. At the facility itself, the well operations are pretty much concentrated in the center of it's dispersed, it is in the center proper of that facility. So I think what you may be noticing, my initial reaction is perhaps it could be the customer meter, if there was a meter.
Oh, this is not a meter, this is a big digging project.
Right,
this is no
or
meter.
a distribution part, so please see me afterwards,
Sure.
and we'll follow up
But
accordingly.
I would like to know who owns the land. I think we're all curious in the neighborhood. It's the one parcel that's not developed. I thought it was a park, but then I heard from somebody that belongs to the gas company, so I
If we can go through the area, sort of, if it is ours, we can confirm that.
Thank you.
And Marcus?
What's the name?
Is it Morris?
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. Thank you.
Sure.
I should have apologized ahead of time for butchering names.
That's okay. Hi, Jared. How you doing? Hi, Mark. Hey. First of all, thank you very much for coming out here tonight. Chet, I was a little concerned. The reason why I raised my hand when I did with the question after you spoke, you said something about a representative coming and smelling the gas. Is that the extent to the monitoring that goes on in these facilities? No. And what is the monitoring? And you also mentioned that there was monitoring while the work was going on, is what you said.
Yes.
Is it only while the work is going on, or is this area being monitored on a regular basis, and just how far down is that monitoring?
Thank you for cleaning that up.
Oh, sure.
First, overall, just in our facility, that we have personnel that work 24/7 around the clock. We have various patrols that we do. We also have a lot of instrumentation on our different pipelines. We look at the pressures. We do periodic surveys as regulated by the Division of Oil and Gas, where we look down in the wells. As far as the event itself, during the day when we have workers on the site, and on this, because of the kind of operation that we have, we only work in daylight hours because of the danger it would place the employees and contractors in that event. We actually use monitors to look for percentage of methane around that. And again, this is the only area where we see concentrations. So for their safety, we use those kind of monitors. We've also walked around, and this is where we have seen the seepage occur, where we use thermal imaging devices and to see if we can see methane at that time. We continuously monitor the pressures that we're seeing, because the pressures that we see from that well itself tell us about the characteristics of the leak that we have. And so we're continuously monitoring those as we move through the event.
And at what particular time did you decide the workers in the area? This occurred on Friday. At what particular point did you decide the workers in the area needed to wear any kind of safety gear? And what is that safety gear you wear? And why did you decide at that particular point?
On the, when it was initially found, our employee noticed the smell. On the response of crews that come up, again, we use these monitors that we have that can tell the percentage of methane that's in the air to determine can they safely go in or not. At various times, if we're going to be working in a hazardous atmosphere based upon that level of methane, we actually use air packs similar to you see that the firemen use at times if they're needed. Generally, we don't want to work in that kind of atmosphere. And so we actually, even as we're doing this operation, if we see that level get up at that point, we will pull back away from it, it will dissipate, and then we'll re-engage and start to work again.
Thank you. And Doctor, thank you for mentioning that you're here to listen too, because there was a bit of concern with the way this meeting was crafted, that it was not so much of a dialogue, but just question and answer. And there's a lot of people here that need to testify about what's going on.
Christina Sutherland.
I'm thrilled that you guys are here. We really do appreciate getting more information. I apologize for my appearance. I'm disheveled. I just came from soccer practice over at Devonshire and Mason. The reason I decided to come here is because I was talking to another mommy who we were having a conversation and we noticed a gas smell. I smell it at my house. I'm a business owner and homeowner here in Porter Ranch. And the concern has been that as I've called and complained and asked questions, I haven't really been getting a lot of information. So the question I have for you this evening is, knowing that there are definitely concerns in the community, we are being affected with all sorts of different symptoms depending on who you ask. Even the kids have effects. I'd like to know what medical facilities have been informed about this issue. I'd like to know what training Southern California Gas provides for the medical facilities in the area, because as we call and have complaints, basically we're told, don't be in the area and the effects will dissipate, or if you're not smelling the gas, you're not going to have the problems anymore. And we really can't do that because we live here, we go to school here. My children go to Castle Bay Lane and they're complaining about it constantly, the smell that they smell. So I'd love to know what kind of training, what kind of medical facilities have been contacted, and really to know what we can do as parents and community owners or property owners to protect ourselves from the smell. It seems like it's not going to end anytime soon.
We have, in terms of local hospitals, is that what you're referring to? Like
Hospitals,
Northridge Medical
facilities,
Center?
doctors.
As far as I know, we have not reached out directly to the
Okay.
hospitals, but that's a great suggestion. We have reached out, of course, to public health agencies and to first responders. I also just want to comment, the reason you see Brett and I dressed like this is Brett's been living on that hill since the date started.
Okay.
And
Burning eyes.
it is not normal for the chief operating officer and the senior vice president to be the incident commanders, but I say that because I want to convey to you how important it is for the company, for us, to address this. I do want to make sure that that's our appearance. I want to make that very clear. But I will definitely I appreciate your recommendation, and we will follow through on that.
Okay. I also heard you guys say that there's monitoring that's been done. Is this going to be going forward as well? And are you going to continue to monitor in an in-depth way so that perhaps we'll get advance notification if this should happen again?
I know that right now we're looking at a monitoring plan, which is more comprehensive.
Okay.
I can't comment on what that looks like. Right now, as Brett mentioned, our first and foremost is monitoring the situation. And if we have a plan beyond that, we'll certainly share that with the community.
Thank you again for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Kyoko? Aquino?
We're gonna, hold on one second, Paul.
in response to notifying the hospitals, I just want to say I hear you, and I'll take that back to our office to see if there's anything else we can do.
And so I'm actually adding a little more to the one just she said. Actually, I live in the Highlands, and smell is really strong. It's almost like when you go out, you kind of get knocked down by it. So, and I have symptoms, just really bad symptoms: headaches, dizziness, shortness of breath, and really severe dehydration, nosebleed. And my cats are vomiting overnight, it's constant. So I went to, added to that, I went to actually emergency room because that symptom is really bad. It was at night and that was the only place open. What I got was that actually no one knows. Like they have to call the poison control center. And then they say, well, let me call them and then come back. And they say, well, yeah, poison control center said gas is safe. So there is no protocol. So I was told, like, no treated, there's no treatment or there's no test they can do. And I was sent home after 5 hours I've been there. So my question to that is, are the medical facilities in the area prepared to care for mercaptan exposure and health issues associated with that, which is kind of the same question that she asked. And also, who actually will train the medical professionals about the whole effect of the chemicals? And also, does LA County Health Department have emergency response plan from gas company for the direct and the secondary health effect on public and residents exposed to the gas, mercaptan, and other chemicals from the field?
At least I'll try to hit the first two, and then we'll have to defer to the experts on the third. Again, I thank you for the questions. To me, part of the huge reason for me being here tonight is to hear from all of you, to hear your concerns, for us to learn more on how we can try to help and support you as we go through this. Because this is one huge takeaway, I think, for both Jimmy and I, is what more we can do as far as the outreach to the local hospitals, what we can do more as far as trying to bring in more outside experts to answer some of those questions. And we can't answer them for you now, but we're going to take this away and be able to give that information back to you of what we can from the outside.
Okay, yeah, because they didn't even know there is a facility in the area, which is the biggest facility in the western U.S. So I think they should know that at least there is an emergency, they're going to be really busy. So another question is,
This will be
pets.
your last question, really.
Okay. Okay, so also the people, all kinds of age comes to Porter Ranch for hike, exercise, and go to park. And is there any warning? Is there any like safety tip for them? Because or is there any method of communication that they know, they're aware? Because if they come and they have a headache and.
That's a great question. I know our communications and public outreach folks have sent out letters, I believe, and we also have a booth that is set up right by the entrance if there are any questions that come up. But my takeaway from this is it doesn't matter how many letters, we gotta always be relentless, and we can always do a better job. Because some of the hikers may not even be in that area that received the letter, right? They may be folks like myself who live in another part of the valley. So we will definitely do a better job of making people aware of what's going on.
Can I just go just a little, so, health department, can you make this a bit?
Uh,
Is there any, can you think of any? Can you think of any reason or any cause, given what you know about the gas leak and the odorant, that these symptoms would be happening, the symptoms that we're talking about? Can you?
Yes, thank you. That's why I asked people to please share your symptoms that you're experiencing so that I can make note of them. And odors are known to cause and are in this community, it appears to be causing the symptoms you're experiencing: headaches, nosebleed, nausea. These are all impacting your quality of life. They are all serious health concerns as far as we're concerned. And I think the last speaker drove the point home, which is you live here, your kids go to school here. It's difficult for you to leave the neighborhood when that is the solution that your doctor recommends. So I think it gets back to the larger purpose of us being here, which is to stop the gas leak as soon as possible. And we encourage the gas company to be very clear about their timeline so you know what to expect and how much longer this will be occurring. And I know that they are going through extreme efforts to update their website so that you know on a day-to-day basis what that timeline looks like, so that you have very clear expectations.
We'll take it.
First of all, I just wanted to say that this is really good feedback for us to hear, and one of the things about this situation is we seem to have a transient situation. Sometimes when you call the agencies and when we get out there, what you've been experiencing may not exist any longer, and that's the nature of the chemicals that we're dealing with. It's very transient. With a little bit of wind, it disperses, and we're not exactly there every day that you are. So I wanted to say that this is really good feedback for us to hear, and we're going to be looking at some things based on your comments. As far as the treatment, and you're talking about treating the symptoms and getting to fresh air as a standard protocol for this kind of an exposure. We know the relative levels that we're dealing with. It's in the parts per million range. So doctors that say they don't know how to treat it, they kind of do, in a sense, of treating your symptoms and then making sure you're in an area where you don't have to breathe it. That's your problem, in that you go back home and you're getting these whiffs again. So very good feedback. I think a couple of us here are going to come back and start talking maybe personally to some of you, maybe through our contact information. You can start letting us know exactly who it is that's feeling some of the symptomology, and so we can start creating a picture. Secondly, on the monitoring part of it, that's something that's very important to us. We've made comments in terms of the gas company not only monitoring up at the site to make sure that there's no issues where they're doing the work, but also in the community. Secondly, not only is Southern California Gas doing monitoring, but anytime we or the AQMD get a complaint, we come out and we bring our field equipment that will allow us to monitor levels in the field too. And in some cases, as was mentioned, AQMD is taking samples and taking it back to the lab and having it analyzed. So we're getting a better and clearer picture of what's happening here, and we're taking action as more information is coming out.
Okay, thank you. Maybe more.
Hi, I want to say I appreciate you coming out tonight, and I appreciate you stepped up your communications, and I read your letter about the gas leak, and so I'm interested in it from a layperson's technical perspective. So from that perspective, I'm kind of wondering if you can give us a feel for how the leak might have happened. And I read the part about the ice and the drop in pressure, and so from a lay perspective, I'm wondering, how do you get a hairdryer down there to test it or whatever you do? And how do you get a cork or something down there to stop it? So I'm just kind of wondering if you could kind of, at a high level, explain how do you solve this problem? How did it happen? How do you solve it? And how do you prevent it in the future?
It's a switch.
As far as the leak itself, ultimately, once we stop the flow and we put fluid in it where it's what we call dead, we'll assess it to see if we can determine what actually caused it over time, if it was some type of corrosion we experienced or something like that. We do suspect that it is a leak that is shallow, and it is going from a high pressure to a low pressure. So when you have that kind of change of pressure, and if you have water moisture in the air because of this huge pressure drop, it will actually form ice plugs. And in the case with methane, it's called a hydrate that will form. And so the oddity for us on this one is it formed one inside the smallest piece of pipe that we have in there called tubing. That's what's not allowing us to put this fluid down the well, and that's how we ultimately kill it or control it. The last picture that I showed during our discussion is a piece of equipment that's called coil tubing. It's small diameter, it's about 1.5 inches. We'll actually go in there with something that it's called a jet head. Just think of a cap that has 4 or 5 holes drilled into it, which will increase the velocity of the fluid that we're pushing. Literally, we're going to try to jet it out as a first step. And if that, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand what you meant by that.
So it's kind of like if you take your garden hose and when you put your thumb on it, and it increases the velocity of the water flowing out, and you're cleaning your driveway and you're pushing the dirt and stuff off. Well, that's kind of what we're going to be doing as a first step to see if we can get through the ice. Our second step is we'll put something that's kind of like a bit or something that's very hard on the bottom, and we have a motor that we can put on the bottom that spins, and see if we can go in then and chew the ice up. And then once we're through the ice with this unit called coil tubing, then we go down to the very bottom and we start pumping this fluid down. It's simply brine water, salty water, and that's what will ultimately control the well and stop the leak.
So does that fill a crack or something, or how does that work?
No, what it does is where what we call our reservoir, where the gas is stored at 8,000 feet, it stops it from coming from there. So that's how we can work on these. So now it's contained there, and then we can go in and run different kinds of surveys. And we'll look and see exactly where the leak was, and hopefully, again, to try to determine the cause. I do want to address the future part of your question as well. And again, we're regulated by the California Public Utilities Commission, but we've got a fairly expansive program that we've proposed, and hopefully we've started this year, where we're going through all of our wells and all of our storage fields and actually pulling the tubing or that small one out. We're inspecting the insides of our casing, we're pressure testing them, and this is going to be a program that we're going to start as a cycle of what we call integrity management, and so that as we go forward, we have a better picture of what that well looks like inside.
Thank you.
Gary Soltani?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Gary Soltani, and my house is right adjacent across the street from your entrance to your facility. So aside from all the health complaints that we have heard tonight, aside from all the health issues that we are all concerned about, another issue that I have or concern is the traffic, because the trucks and the amount of increase of the traffic of trucks that are coming up and down those streets is like incredible. As far as the leak is concerned, I've been smelling that gas by my house for over a year now. It's not a recent issue. So maybe because of this accident, it's been, noticed by a lot more people. But for those of us who live nearby your facility, it's constant. It's always.
Thank you.
So I'm not sure what you guys are doing about it or what can be done about it, because if if it is constant and your studies show that small amounts doesn't cause any harm, how about the long effect of being under that situation? How long does it take before you guys can say that this is harmful? Do we have to go through this for years and smell this every year?
I'll address the truck traffic first. You know, we have a separate project that's going on right now where we have some very old type of pieces of equipment that we're replacing, and that project will finish, I think, about mid next year, somewhere in that time frame. So that the traffic itself, I know that in this area has experienced a higher volume as we go about replacing that equipment. That's actually replacing some fairly old combustion turbine engines with electric driven engines. So from the air side, it's going to be much cleaner. But to get it done, we have had an increase in traffic. That, you know, I know that the community's been impacted from that.
Before you answer my next question regarding this, every business has a business operation hours. I know in your situation, the production is 24/7, but the operation of moving trucks up and down should be in a certain time limit. Not at 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock at night, 3 o'clock in the morning, especially because of the steep road that you have there. When these trucks roll down, they put the brakes and it makes weird noise, especially within the canyon. My kids wake me up and say there's a monster out there. I'm serious, I mean, I'm not joking about it.
So on that piece, again, that's one that we will take back and address to see who's up there. There is another operation that's on the hill as well. We're going to address ours and that other operation.
Turmo!
And between those, though, again, we try to be sensitive to the neighborhood, that type of noise.
This is too short a time. I guess I got your answer, sorry to cut you off, but what is the timeline of this project? How long will it take for this facility to shut down? I mean, is there a timeline of how long you have reserved there?
For the field itself,
Yes.
there is no timeline.
I mean, is there a measurement of how long there's a reserve of gas that you can extract out of there?
Thank you for that. So the field that we have is storage, so it actually cycles. Generally speaking, in the summer, it's filled.